All right, thanks for coming. I have sad news and bad news. The sad news is that our speaker had to cancel. And obviously she had some issues, so she's going to reschedule. The bad news is I'm presenting. And if you agree with that as bad news, it's not good. One of the things that I wanted to do with Jeanette Knowles, Dr. Knowles, she was going to speak about her own experiences of being a poor leader when she became a dean of a college. She was in her early 30s and she thought she knew it all. And she spoke to our senior team at one of the retreats I had. And she just basically said, after reflecting on all the decisions she made, that she probably ruined a number of people's careers. But she didn't know she didn't have those skill sets at the time. So we had talked about some things, she and I done two things. I had this presentation set up to show supervisors just the things that successful leaders do. And so I incorporated with some of the things that she was talking about, the things that she didn't do well. So it's kind of what successful leaders do and the differences between successful and unsuccessful leaders. Made it even easier because I wanted some research to back it up, as I used 3 different sources to help with this presentation. So I always want to give credit first because some of you may have read it. Nothing's generally new when it comes to leadership. But I do want to say is lately leadership has been a hot topic mainly because of the workforce and how the workforce is changing. So I will end with that. I will end with 3 tips to leading millennials. So again, successful leadership, 11 differences between successful and unsuccessful leaders. All right, just again, in that topic, just the name of that is, it was intriguing to me because a lot of times we don't know when we're not doing something well. Successful leaders embrace change. Unsuccessful leaders fear it. Is that kind of a common theme? Some head movement? Embracing change can be difficult for some. It's difficult for most. I was being kind of kind when I said for some. Change is difficult for most, but as a leader, you have to be able to adapt to things that are coming your way, especially with the technology and how accelerated it is. As I get toward the end, I'll talk about how millennials view technology and how you have to lead them. Successful leaders adapt to change and meet it head on so they don't fear it. And obviously, when you're not embracing that change, you're actually leading from behind. There are going to be other people who are going to know what's going on and kind of get ahead of you when you are responsible for leading them, leading a group, leading a team, leading a department, and being Steve Jobs and leading a company. So I don't know if you know this, but there's a new Apple car, literally an Apple car that's coming out. They have decided to put their technology in a car, and since they have enough money, $216 billion, they decided to just go ahead and make it themselves. That's staying ahead. So, next one. Successful leaders talk about ideals. Unsuccessful leaders talk about people. Now that's true in a holistic sense. When you're trying to get things done, ideals must be on the table. They have to be on the table. You generally hear pushback when this is how we always done it. If they start with that phrase, they probably aren't going to bring any ideals to the table. We've always done it that way. Okay, well, we're going to leave that. It's interesting. We paid you $5 an hour when you came in here. You don't want that same phrase. We've always done it that way. So that's a pushback. And generally, when you're sharing ideals, you're going to make other people better. I've been in meetings this week where I was just impressed with some of the ideals that came forth. And it took me a while to get people to think like that. There's a culture. But ideals around me are safe. And if you provide them to me, I'm just hoping you're being an advisor to me and provide me with extra knowledge. And unsuccessful leaders gossip and talk about people. Now, I know we talk about gossip and how toxic it can be, but the interesting thing about gossip is how easy it flows. You almost aren't the one gossiping if you're just there. Right? So Jacob, if I came to you and I start talking about Maya, like I normally do, and that's just between us, if someone else overhears us, you're a part of that same discussion and you were gossiping along with me. So the interesting thing about gossip is you don't even have to be the one to say it, to be accused of it. And when that happens, it destroys your credibility as a leader. So we have been in environments where someone comes and says something inappropriate to someone around us. It could be a sexual comment. It could be about their dress. It could be about their religion or their ethnicity. And if we allow it, then we are allowing that gossip to take place, and we're destroying our credibility with whomever was there. Whoever reports to us or whoever sees us as a leader, we destroyed our credibility. So when that happens, the environment becomes very toxic. The part that's more interesting is that that becomes the norm. If gossip is allowed and not corrected or confronted, it becomes the norm, because you want to make sure you talk about other people before they talk about you. It's kind of human nature. So I'm looking at Andrea. One of the things I tell Andrea is when people are going to talk about you, so you need to start the rumor. So I start rumors a lot about myself, that I'm nice, that I'm here till 10 at night. It's only about 6 or so. But people will talk, so you got to be careful with that. Number 3. Successful leaders accept responsibility for their failures. Unsuccessful leaders blame others. Is that something that you can agree with? Anyone have any examples? That never happened here? Like when you're in kindergarten, something happened? No examples? What about in the organization that we do business with, about our partners? When they have accused you for doing something when you weren't particularly at fault? Any of those? So, you think it's something that happens, that leaders should take responsibility for failures, but we don't have any failures. There's some things that I think I've done since I've been here, and it's partly because of lack of knowledge. I remember when I got here, we were still thinking about the comp study, and I didn't have the history of it. And in fact, I was told not to have the history of it. Literally, coming in, like, we don't need you to go back in on that. We don't want to talk to you about that. So you stay away from it. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And when people came to me and they wanted to talk about the comp study, because it was still fresh in their mind, I was like, I don't have a clue what they're talking about. And that was, as the person coming in, you are responsible for all the failures in the past. If you're a new supervisor, whatever happens, except you had 3 new people. You got lucky, man. Whatever happened in the past, they're going to want you to know about it. And you're going to have to take a side in their mind. Either you sided with me or not. You're siding against me. And one of the things that happened was because I didn't have the background, I did not take a side. And it made it seem like I was insensitive. So I went and studied as much as I could, looked through all the paperwork, and made a decision that we were going to push and try to do something better the next time we had a chance, which we did do something better. I did not throw the blame on others. You can't do that. It's easy to do it. And in fact, if that should happen, quickly correct it. If it should happen, if it's done unintentionally, you have to go back and quickly correct it, because if you don't take that blame for failures of yourself or your team, people will quit following you. They will lose trust in you. And they also will stop being innovative. So you want to be careful with that. All right. The last thing I put up there is that if you blame others for failures, you really just create an enemy. And they're not going to trust you, but you just created an enemy. So when you're trying to get things done the next time, they're probably going to be the one preventing it. So, give me 3, 4. Successful leaders give credit for wins. Unsuccessful leaders take all the credit. That kind of is the partner to the previous slide. How many of you have, which I do know some personal things, have given praise to your staff? Show of hand. That's something that happens around here often, so I appreciate that. Happens so often. And I came from an environment where you didn't say anything good about your employees because it was just expected that they did their job. But doing their job does not negate the fact that they did something well. And so speaking about it, acknowledging it was something that I enjoyed when I got here seeing it. And I get a lot of them. I used to go around and tell everybody, hey, you just did this. I still do sometimes. But now I ask for them, so I get them a lot. So I don't always get a chance to go back and say you did a great job. But it's very important that we do that, and I appreciate that culture here. We've also had a few people who will take all of the credit for things and not give their employees or their team members, co-workers, acknowledgement as well. So you have to be careful, because when we come in a group and we're trying to group think or have a committee, if you're on a committee with someone who wants to take all the credit, how do you participate? Just a no? You don't participate too much? Or you just don't feel like you want to offer your suggestions? Okay. This is quiet. All right. Unsuccessful leaders take all the credit. So a leader who fails to give credit to those people foster a me-first culture. And we rarely want to give somebody else the opportunity to take credit for what we do. So again, we're not going to share our ideals. Successful leaders want others to succeed. Unsuccessful leaders desire others to fail. I want to ask that again. Is that something that's common? Is that a true statement, or can it be a true statement? Can't be a fact. I'm going to start asking somebody to read that. What do you think? Successful leaders want others to succeed. Is that something that you can get along with? Why do you think that is? Jarrett? No. Why do you think successful leaders want others to succeed? Yes?
I know in our department, if my girls do good, that makes our department look good. It makes all of us look good.
It's true.
And it carries over to everybody in my department.
Okay. And being humble as you are, and I know that, it also makes you look good. And you know you didn't mention that, but of course that happens. In today's train them up and send them off world, most times people are judged by how many people they've developed who become leaders. If you have a group of people who never leave your group, never take on more challenging roles, never get higher positions, then you really aren't leading them. You're stifling them. But now they want to know, if you follow college basketball, it's that you coach under a particular coach and how many of their assistants went on to be head coaches some other place. That's what you're saying is, can you develop future leaders? And if you can't, then your product will probably suffer sooner or later. So that's kind of where that comes from. But I've also been around people who, because they don't think there's enough to go around, they don't want others to succeed. They want to get all the credit because it may not come up again. And therefore, they don't even give their own staff credit. And they hope that they fail. Because if I'm in a situation where I am elevated and appreciated for something I've done, you may think you've missed your opportunity. So we had, there's a culture at times when people can go around sabotaging others. And you kind of feel that way if you're in that same committee when your ideals are being stolen. So at the bottom piece of that, I said unsuccessful leaders wish or even plan for the demise of others. And if we also got around the water cooler, which we don't have anymore, we would agree to that we know others who are trying to plot and destroy coworkers. So that happens. 6, successful leaders continuously learn. Unsuccessful leaders wing it. I'm going to see if someone remembers what I said about leaders in here. I said, if you're not learning something, this was something I threw, every 2 weeks you're doing what? Anybody remembers? Anybody listen? If you're not learning something every 2 weeks, you aren't really leading your people. Because what else are you going to provide them with? You have already given them, hopefully, all you know. And if you stop learning, then so do they, unless you create the environment where learning is expected. So if you're sitting back doing nothing, just doing your job and thinking I'm doing it the best because I've been doing it this way for 10 years, and you haven't learned anything else, then you really aren't leading your folks anymore. That goes back to the earlier slide where eventually they're going to be leading you. You're leading from behind. And when a situation come up that you needed some new knowledge on and you don't have it, you're going to wing it. Andrew thinks the only one that Brian's in here too. So do I have any other deputy directors? And part of our review was job knowledge, correct? It's like, tell me what new knowledge you have in your position. And I said it in the last 3 months. I expect you to know something throughout a short period of time that you can then turn around and add it to your position or to your people. And they all had something new to offer. So I appreciate that of my staff. The other part of that is I often use them as advisors. And how can they advise me if they still have the same knowledge that they had and nothing new to build on it when we first sat down? That means they've probably given me everything they have, and now I'm on my own. And they know their job better. And when I'm going to ask them about what's going on around here, they should be able to tell me something new. Even if it's, like Brian and I was just talking about, PFM and our camera system in the JDC. He had to learn all of that new knowledge about the camera system. We put 200 cameras in, about 200 cameras in over there, and of course the JDC had to learn about it. But that's their function. IT had to assist, and he had to learn it as well. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, you need to include Jared in that and my staff. That's not me. I'm actually learning from my two guys that are done with that.
So that is exactly how it works. Your folks have to learn so they can advise you and teach you. All right. Thanks for raising that hand. Jared was like, I know he's not going to take all the credit. No, Jared, you didn't say. Oh, that was fun for me, Jared. All right. So leaders who stop learning block others from success. And how that happens, can someone tell me how that can happen? Can you give me a for instance or an example of how that can happen? If you stop learning, how you can block someone else? The reason why I'm so open is because everybody in here works for us. We don't have outside folks in here. So give me some thoughts. How can that happen? If your supervisor stops learning, can that be a way that they stop you from growing?
Yes, because you never learn any new ways of doing things.
Okay. And you're not saying that because I do that with you, right? You're just helping me out? Okay, you're just saying. Also, while you were saying that, it popped in my head that if I'm not learning, I'm probably not sending you off to training either, because I'm not valuing it. And so if you're not trained and you're not growing, then you probably aren't going to be able to get the next position that comes up. When you're going to interview, interviewing is very competitive now. And it's always what you should know and not what you do know. Generally, we are interviewing based on what we know, but that's to do the job you currently have. You're interviewing for a different job. So we want to know you have additional knowledge for that. So to say I've done this the last 5 years and that's why I'm right for this job, we're not asking you to interview for your current job. Tell us what you know that you can do on this new position that you're applying for, and being very competitive with, 5 or 6 other folks who are going for that job. At one point, I had a receptionist position open, and in my department, and at a different location, and I had 584 applicants. 584 applicants just to answer the phone. And it was interesting how during the of course I didn't interview all of them, but during the interview, we had PhDs, we had JDs, we actually had medical doctors. We had so many people coming in to apply for this job and expecting, because I have all this experience, that they should be interviewed. But they didn't put down any experience about answering the phone, learning how to quickly adapt to a phone system, how they has experience getting into an environment that's new and going through, we call them Rolodex, but going through the contact list and being able to transfer calls. How quickly do you learn an organization's structure? Because if somebody's calling and if I'm asking for Jan and I don't know where Jan worked, then I'm not doing my job. But it was interesting that they felt that because they have a JD, a law degree, that they can answer a phone and be paid for it. They probably never really did that in their life. They had somebody else do it. But the competition was fierce. Yes?
Your last bullet point there says leaders who stop learning start to block. So if you find yourself as an employee in that position, are there any suggestions on how it might be able to resolve?
If I'm the employee and you're blocking me? Yes, one of the things I say to myself and to others that I mentor when they're younger, your life can't be your job. It could be part of it. So you're responsible for your own growth. The other thing is you need to create relationships with people outside of your department. So I'm not disrespecting you by having a relationship with another deputy director. I'm just building my own network and my own base for new knowledge, for new opportunities. So I would look at it this way. I would come to you and suggest that I would like to be trained, I would like to be developed, or I found this online, and can I attend that? And I would explain to you how I think it would help me do my job. And then I would wait and see what you say. And if we get to our performance evaluations or performance review, and you did not allow that to happen, I would bring that up to you to let you know that's something that would make me feel more motivated in my current position, and that I would feel that I could offer you something more once I acquired that new knowledge. That's one of the ways I would handle it. So, anyone else have a better way? You got a better way. Okay. Next slide. Successful leaders ask how they can help others. Unsuccessful leaders ask how they can help themselves. That's true, but it can be very subtle. When you're in an environment where resources or new knowledge are being imparted, and you feel like, wow, this is coming down the pipe. I want to get in on it early. And you're thinking about you and not maybe someone that worked for you that probably would be good to be a part of it as well, but you want it first. And therefore, you're not going to expose your other staff to it. You're thinking about how it helps you. I remember when I first moved to Columbus, I think I started telling you part of the story a long time ago. I didn't know anyone. So I asked, there was a group of African-American CEOs that was meeting in Columbus. And I asked them, could I come to the meeting? They looked at me like, you don't qualify to be in our group. And it was interesting because at the time, it was just a group of men who made over $50,000. And it wasn't that many. It was really interesting that it wasn't that many. So I said, you're going to need a secretary, right? You want somebody to take notes? And he said, well, would you do that? I said, yeah, I just want to help. I met every single one of them. In fact, one of them was a recommendation, I guess. I didn't put him down, but for this job here, that many years ago. They called him. He was not on my list and said, what do you think of Orvell? You know, and I won't say all the nice things he said about me because you probably think I'm making it up. But he had some good things to say about me, and it was based on how he met me and how I introduced myself as just how can I help you? But I learned how Columbus worked. Urban League was in there. Law firms were in there. African-American male. I forget what council was in there. We had a number of directors at state levels. There was the first African-American who was director of commerce was in there. They ended up going into banking. I ended up getting into banking. All of that was from that small group. State Representative Herschel Craig was in there. And I remember him making me sit next to him because he said, I need you to write down what I'm going to say. And then he would say it because I had to put the notes down. Because they had robust discussions. So you didn't always get to write down your thoughts. So I was writing down everything. I understood how Columbus worked, and I appreciated that. Go ahead. Successful leaders take chances. Unsuccessful leaders are afraid of failure. That one is sometimes difficult to accept as a leader because we'll make up excuses on why we should not take a chance. We often do, and it can be painted in light brushstrokes like, I'm not going to ask because my supervisor don't like me. That happens often. We say that. So, but if I have a team who needs computers, if I have a team who needs a flexible schedule to do what we're asking them to do, I need to be brave enough to go and make that ask and don't worry about being shot down. But if we don't take those chances, we will definitely not be able to succeed. And there are so many people who fail because they're afraid to try. And that's what happens in an environment where we don't encourage people to take a risk. So we've had people who aren't allowed to get up from their desk, who aren't allowed to go and learn what's going on in other departments in the court, and because we think we're going to lose them. And we have to change that mentality. But I can tell you this, that it is scary to take a chance and to fail, but it is 100% guaranteed that if you never take a chance, that you probably would never succeed in anything. That's your first step as a kid. You fell so many times, you just thought that was life. You know, as you got older, the first thing you want to do is grab onto something so you don't fall. But kids, you got to tell them to grab onto something. You got to put their hands on banisters and say, be careful. But they're learning so fast, they don't have time to be careful. They're succeeding every single second with screaming at you. If that didn't work, do I spit on you? That didn't work. How do I explain to you? How do I get across to you that I'm hungry? Or that, you got your elbow in my face. Those are the things that we have to look at. How do we express to people as quickly as possible that we need something to be done and not worry about the no from our higher ups? Successful leaders look to understand themselves. Unsuccessful leaders don't care about introspection. Can somebody kind of give me a summary of what I was thinking about when I said they seek to understand themselves? There's a lot of it up there. You can read it and tell me. And then I'll say, Diana, what do you think? What do you think a leader who tries to understand themselves, why is that? And how can that benefit them? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I
So
didn't.
you know what your own strengths and weaknesses are, and know what your limitations are, and so, that sometimes your strength is that you can recognize someone else's strength they don't see in themselves. And
That's good.
that way.
That last statement was really good to have as a supervisor, to be able to identify others' strengths and weaknesses, and then hopefully help them overcome them. Pardon me?
And make it a strength if they think it.
Yes, Ashley.
Also, building on what he said, so that they can see where they need to grow, which is, I think, what she was getting at the end. So.
Right. So if you're not in the mindset of growing yourself, understanding yourself, then you probably aren't going to provide that environment for others. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is really, in this environment, if you understand what motivates yourself and you understand that there's particular motivators, then you can turn around and use that for, if I need to know what Donna's motivators are. I'm looking for those because I'm aware that I have those as well. But if I'm not trying to change anybody, because I'm not changing myself, life gets boring at work. We don't expect you to go back. I don't expect you to learn anything. I don't care how you feel that day. And I'm not interested if you're getting what you need to get your job done. But if I understand that those are the things that are motivating me, if I can show that to you, I can get you to work harder. The other thing is that there's certain quirks that ticks us off, right? When somebody comes in, if remember you're in school and they used to have this thing called the chalkboard? None of you, we have people here that still had chalkboard. I don't know, we have some young people in here. But that, when the teacher used to scratch the chalkboard, how that sound, you got the face already. Yeah, that sound, you still remember it. That created a feeling in you that either made you want to pay attention to that teacher or not, or it stopped you from focusing. There are things that we do to people when we walk in that can create an environment that make them not want to participate and not want them to focus on the team because we're not caring about them. So if our moods are easily shifted by others, then we need to know that so we can prevent it. Last night, if you didn't stay up until 1:30, you missed the historic 60 points by Kobe Bryant in his last game. And he said the biggest issue after all those $27,000 a ticket to sit on the floor and everything that was going on in the city, he said the hardest part for him was to control his emotions. That was the hardest part. Not that I'm 37 and I can't jump anymore. Not that they keep passing me the ball and I'm exhausted. It was, this is my last game and the world is watching. And it was funny part, he kept talking about, and my little girls were saying, so my dad can play basketball because they don't remember him being good. They're still young. But he said one of the things that he worked on the most coming up was controlling his emotions. So at that biggest moment in his life, the thing that he worked on the most was the thing he needed. And it propelled him to success for that one last time. Taking 50 shots at that age. He probably is still in bed. But that was one of the things I want you to understand, that even him at that level of success, he said he understood what motivates him. He understood how to control his mood. You have to get to that point. You just can't say these people get on my nerves, I don't want to come in here. You can't just sit in the car before you come in here and go, these people are going to drive me crazy. You haven't learned. You haven't adapted. If you're that miserable, it's you who have not changed, because people are going to come and do these things to you. You have to figure out how to be able to survive and thrive in a changing environment when people are going to do things that generate responses from you. 10. Successful leaders do not hold grudges. And unsuccessful leaders look for paybacks. I had a director come to me this morning and said that was one of the things that they were working on, not holding grudges, and they generally don't. And I thought that was, I said, hey, I actually going to talk about that. What's wrong with holding a grudge when you're the boss? I'm going to ask Erica since she's not the boss yet. And if
Frustrations on them, not helping two fans because you have something against them that may have happened like a year ago or something.
right, so you could take out your feelings against them or holding something against them, and that happened a year ago. See how young she is? A year ago. No, we're going way back, 15 years, 20 years. Things have happened. And so those are some of the concerns. You're right. But what I was realizing is that I grew up in the inner city, and we always talk about Bangladesh. And we used to have, and this is not to be considered joking or insensitive, we were in an environment where when I would go back and talk to my nephews, they would say that people who were shot or stabbed in their neighborhood, they called them the Taliban. They said, oh, they got Taliban. And I was like, what are you talking about? Now, we used to say it was like Bangladesh, because obviously that was poverty, people dying, a lot of bad weather incidents going on. But what I realized is that every time something happened, and we finally grew out of it, when you heard a shot, you stopped ducking, right? Nobody grew up like that? When you hear, thank you. I'm like, and you was in the military, you know that too. They teach you to stay low. So you're not reacting to every shot. It's just life. Things happen. I had my brother-in-law, I lived by Morris and Fairwood, where a number of gangs were downtown. And my brother-in-law came from Toledo, and he wanted to stay with us. I'm like, oh, great, come stay with me. And he was up in the attic where his bed was, because it was just not a bedroom, it was just a bed. And they started shooting, and he dove to the ground. almost knocked himself out because he hit the wall with his head. And I'm like, what are you doing? He said, they're shooting. I'm like, get used to that because they're going to be shooting every day, every night, and the helicopters will be coming by. I wasn't trying to belittle his experience. He was creating post-traumatic stress disorder. He was reacting to things. He's actually in the military as well, but he was not in an environment where those things go on to where he was learning to react to them. He eventually calmed down, but it took a moment. So I wanted to take that to work. When we are in an environment when people are constantly trying to pay each other back, especially when you rise to a supervisor's position, we talk a lot about what a supervisor should do, and if you got there, what you would do. But when you get there, you clearly have no understanding on what you were going to face. But one of the things you do know is who you're going to get back. As soon as I get there, I know I'm getting such and such, because first of all, they didn't want me here. And second of all, and you go through all these things in your head, you're planning that. That's that PTSD where you think you got to get back at people. And it's you now, if I got to that position and you didn't want me to get there, you're going to assume that I'm going to do that to you. So now you're walking around, even before I do it, with the thought of he's going to get me back. He's going to do something. He's going to prevent me from getting into a training. He's going to stop me from being able to present in front of the judges. He's going to do something. He's going to write me up for something that I don't believe I should be written up for. That's something that's in your mind that may or may not happen, but once you start thinking about it, all your emotions, all your faculties have made that real. It's already real. That's why you duck when there's shots, because you know the consequences of not ducking. So you want to be careful with that. You want to make sure that you're not that type of leader who gets in that position and looks for payback. You just want to make sure that now that I'm here, I'm going to make sure that Lori's going to get what she deserved, because she didn't like me anyway. We've done that and we know it, so some of it just to be honest with ourselves, but that creates a very difficult environment, and it's always 1 minute you trust them, next minute you don't. It's easier not to trust. And if you're thinking somebody's trying to get back on you, that's what you're going to do, not trust them. Last one on this. All right, successful leaders keep a positive attitude. Unsuccessful leaders get negative too often. All right, so you should remember this, and I'm going to put it on Andrea. I said leaders cannot have a bad what, Andrea? Leaders can what? Bad day. All right. Thank you for allowing me to pick with you. Leaders cannot have a bad day. What happens if your leader is having a bad day? You're having a bad day? How does that affect your day?
I mean, if your leader's having a bad day, that's more than likely going to trickle down.
It's going to trickle down.
Walk on eggshells.
Well, don't be using that. Yeah, walking on eggshells. So you're walking on eggshells. If they're having a bad day, you're going to have a bad day. And you're always anticipating that. If you are have a friend or in a relationship where somebody is easily irritated, you don't know how to interact with them, right? Is it difficult to interact with them? And you don't know what to say, and hence the walking on eggshells. But they're okay. Sometimes they forgot all about it, but you're not, because it can happen again anytime. I can say the wrong thing. That's the type of environment that keeps people back. But successful leaders know that if I walk in, there's people I've spoken to, it may make their day, it may not, but I can tell you this, those people I have not spoken to want to know what's wrong with me. Like, are you having a bad day? If I'm thinking about something and they walk by and my mind is kind of off onto something else, they want to know what's wrong with me. You have that all the time. You can't have a bad day, and you have to be willing to accept that role and that responsibility as a supervisor, as a leader. You have to know that people are gauging their day based on yours. You just can't say, well, I'm having a bad day, they just got to stay away from me. You can't have those Snicker days, that commercial with the Snickers. Until you get your Snicker, you're just not yourself. You can't have those. Not when people are following you. Not when your personality creates the culture of your work environment. So be careful with that. And I just finished with nobody likes to be around sad or moody people, especially when it's their leader, or their husband, or their wife, or no. So, any questions on that? I asked that question there because when people want to know how you're doing, do you say, all right, I'm okay, fine, or do you say fantastic? If you're at church, you say fantastic, or I'm blessed. Okay. But your response will determine their response. So smiling is the same thing. If someone's asking how you're doing and you're smiling, they kind of know. So remember to leave your folks with that. All right. Give me this last piece. So I wanted to do this. Millennials, I've been studying a whole lot about leadership, and it keeps coming back to millennials. And I'm going to tell you this, is I actually never get tired of learning something new about leadership. And it's not because I think it's our job to be leaders. It's just that people will see you as a leader whether you think you are or not. You're leading somebody. Somebody's following you. But right now, it's interesting that we've been in a number of trainings where, actually 3 back-to-back trainings, when the first thing they want to talk about, and I was texting Kristen when I was at the court management program training because they were talking about employees and recruiting. And the first thing they talked about was baby boomers, actually pre-baby boomers, because people aren't retiring in their 70s. I mean, they're still working. And then they're talking about pre-baby boomers and Generation X and then millennials. And they're asking, what's the difference when you're recruiting them? So I'm coming across it a lot, but one of the things I enjoy, and I think I kind of got hit with when I first got here, I said that, and we're talking about the probation department, I said, generally this is going to be an entry-level position. Not that it meant that it wasn't a good position. I'm talking about the people who are coming to work. So let me just go back and dealing with trends. Most of you guys know I talk about trends. You need to know the trends, or you're going to assume I said something bad. The trends. Millennials, born 1980 to 2000. They said by 2015, so obviously this is supposed to have happened, 3 out of 4 workers globally will be millennial. So most of the people that's going to come here and get a job is going to be a millennial. And millennials stay at their job under 2 years. So was I wrong in saying that the people who come here is probably going to be an entry-level position for them? Not according to the data. Now, according to your emotions, maybe I was wrong. But you weren't keeping up on what's going on in your industry. So under a year, actually what we were asking in the HR side, because we're talking about how you handle potential lawsuits, it was that on average they think millennials will change jobs 18 to 20 times in their career. 18 to 20 times in their career. So don't take it personal if somebody came to your beloved environment and said, I'm not staying. This is just a jumping off point for me. You taking it a little too personal. You don't own the industry. Millennials are going to come and go. Generation X, they stay on the average of 5 years. Baby boomers stayed on the average of 7 years. If you was in Japan, you was born into that job and you died in that job. And that changed for them. So that just happens. So the other part of this is refinement to leadership and management styles are required to deal with that type of thinking that I'm only here for a moment. So how am I going to get you? What they were saying is that millennials don't want to be managed, they want to be led, and they want to be inspired. So as you start to bring in new people and you're trying to set up the way that you would have expected to be treated when you came in, that probably is not going to get that group. They don't want to be managed or micromanaged. They want you to lead them and inspire them. The other thing that was interesting is that they saw no difference between their work life and their personal life. And we saw try to tell people to separate it. Well, the reason why they can't separate it because everything they have is on their phone. And you know how we talk about not letting people go home and do work because you can't pay them for that. You can't measure whether or not they're doing their job away from the office. But they will just as quickly answer a work email at home as they will answer a personal email at work. They will text back and forth personally at work and find no fault in that. But they also can go home, and which we do a lot, some of the folks around. We text back and forth late into the night when there's things going on. Thank you, Andrea, for the weekend text. We don't get to stop. We constantly are moving. The IT been doing that for about 15 years now. They have been on call for 24 hours like doctors. So they probably need to be compensated as if they never get to go home. And government work is not catching up to that. Government compensation is not always catching up to that. Let's see, there's no work-life balance for them. I was trying to, this is a really interesting thing. I was sitting in my car waiting for my son to come from baseball practice yesterday, and no sooner he gets off the field, he's on his phone. I'm like, would you hurry up? And of course he can't hear me, and he's just working. Everybody else is picking up and trying to leave, and they're walking on their phone. All of these baseball players are walking with their phone. I'm like, who in the world could be calling you or texting you or IMing you or Instagramming you while you're on the field? He got in the car. Even my daughter was mad. His little sister was mad. She said, he gets on my nerves with that, Daddy. And I'm like, that's my girl, right? So he gets in the car, and he leans back and puts his head back. And I'm like, it was a hard day of practice. He said, no. All of my streaks on my Instagram, I'm losing them. People aren't texting me, Instagramming me like they used to. There is a thing that's going on that they want to know how many times the same person has contacted you consecutive days. And he's starting to lose that. That's the worst thing that can happen to him. That he's no longer in front of others when it comes to how often somebody's making sure every day they have Instagrammed him. That is really interesting to the type of people. I'm like, he interned at a law firm, and he interned at legislature. And I kept asking him, does he pay attention? I mean, is his phone with him at all times? They said, no, he's okay. I'm like, I don't believe that, because all I ever see him do is wake up and his phone is in his face. He's 17, so what's going to happen later? What happens when he enters into the workforce? So one of the things, though, that I do understand about them, because I coach that group, and I've been coaching that group for a long time and mentoring that group, is that they expect fairness from wherever they're at. Now, they may not be fair, but they expect those people who are over them, who guide them, who lead them, to be fair. And they do not like people to be shown favor, because they know it's not fair that if I'm just being nice to Miss Allen and I'm not being nice to others, somehow that's not going to work right. And this group of people they're conscious driven people. They want to serve. They want to see people be treated fairly. All right, so here's the 3 tips. To lead them, not manage them. You have to change your culture. And we've done some of this. They would like blended hours, or what we can do at the government level, I'm trying to make sure it's appropriate, is offer flex time. Now, of course, older generations like that too, but that's something that they expect. That's something, there was a lady who started here, won't mention the name because they're not here, but within the first month, they were talking about basically how much freedom they had, and they've never had that at another job, and they're going to love it here. Just the freedom. I don't know how much freedom they had, but evidently it was more than where they just came from. And they were just talking about that we're flexible, and we were just starting to talk about instituting the flex schedule and flex time here. And that was one of their big issues. So, and they were a millennial, so that was interesting for me. They like mentoring relationships, not boss relationships. They want you to be, again, leading and inspiring, not managing their work. And our first session when we did our leadership in government and public service was on millennials. Who was here at that first session about millennials? Remember Dr. Strayhorn was just kind of laughing about that. He was a millennial as well. No, he barely made it past that. He's like 35 and a full professor and a dean of 2 departments at OSU, and he's over a department that focuses on leadership for college-age students. And he said when he's a professor that one of the strangest things is that the students did not know what to do without being told, because somebody always planned their life out for them. But at the same time, if you tell them what to do, they have an issue because they're independent and they know. So you have to figure out how to go about doing that. And that's just more of a mentoring environment. Like, hey, what are you planning on doing? Do you need any help? It's more of a suggestion instead of telling them. They actually like their work environment to be transparent and that there's a purpose for the work they do. But the interesting part is that they want results-based rewards. It's not always based on money. We know that. We hear that a lot. And it's interesting because the people who are not in that group, the only way you can tell them that you love them is by what? Give them more money. Show some love. Give me more money. That's not what this group is saying. Generally, because when they first get that job, that's the most money they've ever seen. They're not asking for additional money. That's their first job. They came in, they're getting the salary that's obviously in the posting, so they know what they're getting. But what they want is the additional things. I want to be acknowledged for the things that I know I'm supposed to do, but I want you to tell me I'm doing it well. So we have to remember that. Our job is to get the best out of our staff, so we have to be willing to do that. We have to improve our communication. And that just means increase the frequency that we communicate and provide feedback. I remember asking at one point, have anybody not had a job evaluation in the last year? And a lot of people were raising their hand like, I didn't have it in a year, 2 years, 3 years. They went on. Like, I can't remember the last time that I had feedback. But yet you survived. You kept coming to work. You didn't die. They will probably die. If you don't tell them how well they're doing, if you don't tell them, of course, it's got to be how well, and you have to figure out how to tell them they need to do better. But they want result-based rewards. So if I do this, it's that if-and statement, then you will give me this. It's not always merit-based. So you have to figure out ways to do that. Communicate well with them and often, and to find ways to reward them. The use of technology to connect. If you're not really sending out communications through a phone, they think you're outdated. That's all they want to do. Everything they do is on their phone. They're watching TV on the phone, so do I. I think I'm as bad with technology as they are, so I try to calm myself. But most of their life is on the phone. So if you really want to show them that you appreciate them or that you're ready to communicate with them with something they have next to them. If it's a text and say, hey, you know what, good job, great job, they're going to pick that up really quickly. Hopefully they don't send it to everybody, but that's what they're going to remember. They hold those dear. They're like pictures to them. Now, we used to get a picture and we put it up in our office, and the picture never changed, but the memory is always there for us. They don't let things go. I asked my son to send me a picture of him playing the sax, and he said, what are you going to do with it? It's a picture. I'm like, you send me texts all the time. Like, I'm supposed to keep your text, but I can't keep your picture. It's just the way they're thinking. And, of course, my daughter helped me out and said, Dad just looks at them and thinks about how proud he is to have us. So I do that. But to them, pictures don't mean much. Because why? Snapchat, they're on and they're gone. Pictures are just, ways to communicate without texting. They're driving, or if you're driving with them and they're in the car, they're doing like this. Everything is, 3 seconds and then they're sending it. Then you hit the next corner, they're doing it again. Like, okay, you only went down 1 more mile, and you want them to see that now here's the street I'm on. Their whole life is on that. So you want to talk to them, hit them up, Snapchat them. Say, hey, you know what, miss, you did a great job. I heard you did well on your exams, something. They're going to think you're the coolest person out. Communicate with them using technology. Invest in your people. You have to develop them. That's a cliche, but one of the things that they're saying is if I'm not learning something constantly, they're Googling something, they're finding new search engines all the time to learn information. Siri will answer any question except I found out the things that they won't answer. Siri is not good at answering questions. If I was asking about Steph Curry, how many 3-point did Steph Curry have last night? Siri won't answer it. So they'll eventually be able to answer that, I'm sure. But that's something that they're constantly doing. They can learn on their own. So they expect it. If they can every day, every moment, increase their knowledge, they expect that to happen at their workplace. especially since we're paying them. And they're saying, you're paying me to be smarter. And we also know you're going to leave in next week, but your job is to make sure we're smart. So you have to develop and train them. They expect that. And you have to create a plan because, as Dr. Strayhorn said, their whole life was planned out. And they'll follow it, but it's got to be a plan. And we need to let them know that we care enough about them, and the only way they can really see that we care is we have a plan for them. So you have to lay out that plan so they can believe that you actually are taking away. And again, I put in there, find ways to reward them through that plan. And then finally, provide a robust feedback and offer resources for growth. What I mean by that is talk to them as often as you can about the things that they're doing well and the things they're not doing well. You just got to keep doing it with them because they'll forget it. If you didn't tell them 2-3 weeks ago, you're not showing me any love, you don't appreciate what I'm doing, how come you didn't talk about what I just did a month ago? That's all they want to know is what they did well. They want you to remember that they did something well. They don't want you to tell them what they didn't do well. But the only way you can break in to tell them what they need to do better is constantly tell them what they're doing well. The other thing is, just like with the phone in Siri or Google, you have to give them resources for growth because you don't have to be the one to develop them. They're willing to just say, now where do I find that? Where do I find that? And they'll go and read it. And that's what we're not used to doing. They're like, hey, look, you don't have to tell me everything. Just show me where to find it or tell me where to go get it. So remember that when you're dealing with millennials. It's just that as you're leading them, that all these things need to take place. You have to create a culture within your department and hopefully within the organization that allows for these types of relationships, mentor relationships, that there's transparency, and that there's rewards for them, and that there's some flexibility in them. They want to make sure that you're communicating with them using the sources that they're used to in communicating with. And they expect to be invested in them. They want you to develop them because they're special and they know it. And you need to know it. And the only way they know you know it is if you spend money on educating them. And how long would they plan on being in their job?
2 years.
Up to 2 years. Right? I remember going to work at Chase, JP Morgan, and the lady was interviewing me. She said, you jump around a lot. You was only at your last employer for 8 years. I was like, wow, I don't know if I want to come here. 8 years was not long enough. So, and that was the bank president. So I'm like, okay, so how do you get new people if people don't leave where they're at? We have to start realizing that the only way you're going to get new ideals is if you're going to you have to train your current people, and you have to bring in fresh people. And we have to be looking for that. But we can't bring them in and do the same thing we've always done with them. You have to adapt and you have to change as a leader, and you have to look for ways to give them credit, to let them be the people who receive all the glory for winning. And that's going to make you look better as leaders. So successful leaders, they do all those things. And to be successful with the workforce that we're going to be dealing with and that we're currently dealing with, especially at the JDC, most of the folks under there is under 30. They are dealing with millennials every day in a 24/7 environment where it's difficult, where they don't expect, they expect that being late is okay. I could be late, it's okay. But they don't understand being late just costs the county a lot of money, and they're going to vote against taxes, which you just increase your taxes by making people go overtime. They don't understand how all that works. But your job is to find ways to motivate, to get them in, to teach them and make sure they understand. So, any other questions? Yes?
I wasn't going to ask it until this slide. I'll be real quick. I'm a Generation Xer, but I see some traits in millennials in terms of like supervisory preference. But I'll tell you something I see. Like in the prior slides, you were saying, how are you doing? Fantastic. That's what people want to see. The answer is fantastic. And then here you have transparency, where something I'm aware of, if I'm not mistaken, with millennials, they want that authenticity. So fantastic garners respect over here. The transparency garners respect over here, but over here, the transparency causes a loss of respect. And over here, the mask causes a loss of respect. So I guess it'll be just a path people have to just figure
Well,
out.
you have to, you have to work through it, because part of that was that you have to be positive all the time. And if you're positive all the time, then the sincerity is there. So you remember that was the first piece, that you want to be positive. So they're all looking for something different. You were pretty, astute in seeing that. But one, you're creating the environment for both of them anyway. But if you're constantly positive, then it's sincere. Then it's transparent. But if it's fake, walk in and somebody go, "Oh, hi," and then you think they turned their head and you go, you've seen that, especially that, "Welcome to McDonald's, may I help you?" Right. So, and then they're really not looking at you trying to help you. Right. You feel some type of way. So that is true. Make sure that as long as you're staying positive, you're going to reach both of those groups. And most of us are now being forced to be tech savvy, so we're kind of got that millennial understanding. I know that it was interesting. I enjoyed this when I was looking at with the POs. A lot of them have to go on Facebook to follow their youth. They are millennials. I don't care how old they are. To be successful at their job, they have to know everything that the youth are doing. So if you want to go to one spot in this court and the employees are tech savvy or millennials, even though they're in their 70s, in their 50s, that's the POs. Constantly are keeping up with everything that their probationers are doing. So I was impressed with that. So, all right, you guys. Any final thoughts? All right, thank you for coming. All right.